Samana Marrero from the teleSUR headquarters in Caracas, Venezuela. We'll begin with the news. Stay with us. In Venezuela, President Nicolás Maduro led the March for Loyalty Day as the people demonstrate in support of the government's plan of action of the Essequibo. This Friday, on the Day of Loyalty and Love in the country, citizens march from fine arts to the Palace of Miraflores. Demonstrators are shown with the flag of Venezuela, banners in defense of the Essequibo, and the new map of the nation implemented in schools. The government of Venezuela seeks to incorporate organic law to create a state of Guyana Essequibo and the election of the authorities in the region. President Maduro and Executive Vice President participate in the event. During his speech, the Venezuelan head of state took the opportunity to demand once again that the coercive measures against the Venezuelan people be lifted.
Demand that all sanctions against Venezuela must be lifted. Raise your hands, the ones who are against the U.S. sanctions. Sanctions must be lifted. Down those who made those sanctions. And there we are going step by step, and we are going to make it. Sooner or later, Venezuela is going to achieve that those criminal sanctions.
In the United States, the transnational company ExxonMobil reported a third consecutive day of declining shares. Financial specialists report at the opening of the stock market a fall in the value of the assets of the U.S. transnational company after the legal situation regarding the operation of unlimited spaces. The new fall of the share was registered after the measure taken by Venezuela with respect to the Essequibo territory after the consultative referendum. In Mexico, authorities announced border guard policy for forcing migrants to stay in camp in the middle of the desert to avoid deportation. Hundreds of migrants attempting to cross over the United States every day are taken to these camps and condemned to remain there. Once in the open-air camps, migrants have not access to food or water.
So these are places where the Border Patrol will bring immigrants or ask them to stay. Immigrants are told that they will be deported unless they stay in these camps. Yet, the Border Patrol does not provide them with food, water, shelter, or...
The Interdepartmental Transport of Uruguay is on strike for 24 hours on Friday due to labor disputes. The action was led by the National Union of Transport Workers, which took action following the dismissal of at least 4 of its members at the 3 Cross terminal. The workers claim that the situation is part of acts of union persecution because the days before that they had traveled to vote for a pre-agreement of the Wade Council. While a representative of the National Union of Transport Workers detailed that during the month of March, the company also fired 11 workers from the same union harassment. Still in Uruguay, at least 346 cases of sexual exploitation of minors and adolescents were reported in 2023, which records to statistics represents a decrease in recent years. Under these long challenges for the total protection of children and adolescents against sexual exploitation, public and civil societies organizations in Uruguay announced the number of cases of sexual exploitation of minors and adolescents. Most of the reported cases were registered in the capital city of Montevideo and in the department of Maldonado, Canelones, and Colonia of the South American country. On Friday, local authorities in Haiti report that the escalation of violence and precarious conditions displaced more than 150,000 citizens in the Caribbean nation. The General Director of Civil Protection, Jerry Chandler, admitted in the last 2 years aimed at expansion of armed groups in the capital and departments such as Hartibudin. Around 200,000 people had to leave their homes to take refuge with relatives in shelters or public spaces such as schools, churches, and gyms. Let's take a very first break, but remember you can now join us on our TikTok account as teleSUR English, where you'll be able to see news in different formats, news updates, and more. Stay tuned for more news. On Friday, forced Palestinian citizens to evacuate the United Nations shelters. The United Nations Relief and Work Agency in Palestine, UNRWA, denounced that it had to evacuate 4 of its shelters in the town of Yunis, south of the Gaza Strip, in order of the Israeli army. The agency said more than 1 million Palestinians have been displaced for the 94 UNRWA centers in central Gaza, Yunis, and Rafah. Since the beginning of the site, the agency has registered a total of 129 attacks against its facilities and at least 276 people displaced by the occupation armed forces. The Palestinian media reported on Friday that at least 350 Palestinians were killed in the last 24 hours in Gaza as shooting of residential areas persist. The health ministry confirmed that thousands of wounded continue to arrive at Al-Nasser Hospital in Khan Yunis, victims of the air strikes by the Israeli occupation forces. In this sense, local authorities stress that most of the 450 air strikes reported by the Zionist forces target residential areas, resulting in an increasing number of civilian casualties. Truly traumatic stories continue to be told inside a hospital in Gaza as the new wounded survivors of the Khan Israeli sites arrive daily. In addition to the severe shortages of medical supplies which hospitals in Gaza are facing. From inside one of these hospitals in Gaza, our correspondent Nur Harrison tells us the story of some of the survivors.
We are inside the Shuhada Al-Aqsa Hospital in Deir al-Balah, and here are the cases. Here are whom are being targeted by the Israeli army and the Israeli forces. Whole families have been erased. Here we have 3 cases of children, only children. Here we have a 3-year-old child. Next to her, another child who is 8 years old, and then we have an 11-year-old child. These families, these children lost their whole families. Erased. That is the situation here inside the hospital. And let me add that the hospitals already suffer the lack of medicine, medical supplies, fuel, and some of the very necessities that they can barely service those injuries. This is the situation here inside the hospital.
The humanitarian crisis in the Gaza Strip is worsening due to the growing shortages of food as well as basic hygiene products and medicines. In addition to higher prices targeted by the lack of supplies, thus millions of displaced Palestinians are finding it increasingly difficult to survive under these conditions.
Escena de largas colas para conseguir
The scenes of long queues to get a sack of flour, some vegetables, or gas for cooking are becoming more and more common across Gaza. The shortages are compounded by the rising prices of the few products available, which have turned the many basic foodstuffs into luxury items. Mason Junaid, a displaced person from Jabalia, reports that a simple sack of flour costs the equivalent of $135 in southern Gaza.
We don't know what to buy. We can get flour for 500 shekels. We are displaced and we have no money. We can't find anything to eat or to drink. We beg that you look at us with mercy. We didn't start this war. We are civilians. We have suffered great losses.
La crisis humanitaria es
The humanitarian crisis is a consequence of the Israeli bombardments, but most of all, it is a response to the blockade kept by the Tel Aviv regime that prohibits the entry of supplies through the border crossings, a measure of low military impact of the Hamas militias, but which critically affects the Palestinian civilian population.
No hay comida, no hay bebida.
There is no food, there is no drink. We are dying and nobody cares about us. Aren't the people of Gaza human beings? They are human beings. We are not animals. Why are they putting us in tents like dogs? Whoever wants to start a war must provide the people with a place, shelter, food. Soon we will fight for food and drink. There is no life. This is no life. This is death. Now everyone wishes death.
Los alimentos no son los únicos
Food is
productos.
not the only commodity in short supply in Gaza. In the case of medicines, the World Health Organization said that there is a little or no treatment available for 14% of Gaza population suffering from diabetes, high blood pressure, and other chronic heart conditions. Meanwhile, Mahmoud Musalem, a pharmacist in Gaza City, points out that almost all the medicines are missing.
Most medicines, or 90% of meds, are not available. Drugs for chronic diseases such as blood pressure, diabetes, and endocrine diseases are not available. They are not available here in the pharmacies and in the warehouses.
Mientras la campaña de Israel ha
The
matado
Israeli campaign has directly killed over 1,700 people in Gaza, 70% of them women and children, and injured over 46,000 according to the territory's health ministry.
Sin embargo, no hay registros oficiales.
However, there are no official records of the thousands of Palestinians missing under the rubble or concerning deaths from the starvation,
La falta de asistencia médica
lack
o
of medical or pharmacological assistance, cold, and hunger.
On Friday, Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan refuses to recognize the Palestinian social movement Hamas as a terrorist organization despite pressure from Western powers on the issue. The Anadolu press agency points out that the Turkish leader affirmed that it is a Palestinian political movement and party that won the elections. On the other hand, he reiterated that despite a Western blog declaring Hamas as a terrorist entity, his government does not recognize it in this way. In this sense, Erdogan accuses Israel of state terrorism and the United States and allies of turning a blind eye to the crimes that Israeli occupation army commits in Gaza. In Egypt, on Friday, the Arab League called on the United Nations Security Council and the international community to stop Israel's aggressions against Gaza. The Arab League Secretary General Ahmed Abdul Gate called on the UN Security Council to adopt a resolution on an immediate ceasefire in the Gaza Strip. Gate mentioned that the pressure must be vigorously intensified in all directions in the international community to end the aggression. Let's take our last break, but before we invite you to join us on our WhatsApp community for our English-speaking audience. You can scan the QR code on the screen to join directly and share the link to reach more people. Constant news and coverage of Latin America and the Caribbean, as well as the rest of the world. Stay connected and informed with teleSUR. One financial break, don't go away. Welcome back. In the United States, more than 700 workers of the Washington Post newspaper went on a strike on Thursday due to the 18 months stalemate in labor negotiations with a company. Demonstrators announced that the unwillingness of the paper's and general management to offer a fair contract to the workers and demand a 4% annual rise over the next 3 years to meet the rising cost of living and inflation. The strike comes at a time when the newspaper is dealing with internal leadership turnover and the same economic challenges that have shaken the industry. Meanwhile, unions affiliated with the media also demonstrated in support of the strike, announcing a lack of an air collective agreement for workers for more than a year and a half.
Metro Washington Council President, and I'm standing here with our brother, our affiliate union executive director, Seth. Yes. And we are out here in solidarity helping them fight for a fair contract.
Yep, my name is Seth Parks, executive director of the Washington Multiple Middles Guild. We're here striking the post for 24 hours to send a strong message. We want a contract now. We've been bargaining for 18 months. They've been bargaining in bad faith. And we're trying to send a strong message. We have over 700 bargaining unit members out here on strike to send a message of reporters, circulation drivers, commission sales, and we're going to send a message to make this thing happen and get a contract soon.
And listen to Go-Go too.
On Thursday, Secretary General Antonio Guterres stated that transnational organized crime is a vicious threat to peace and it operates everywhere in all countries.
Often invisible but always insidious, transnational organized crime is a vicious threat to peace, security, and sustainable development wherever it operates. And it operates everywhere, in all countries, rich and poor, north and south, developed and developing. Meanwhile, cyberspace is a virtual El Dorado for criminals.
The activities of transnational organized crime take many forms, but the ramifications are the same: weakened governance, corruption and lawlessness, open violence, death and destruction. Illicit financial flows are not abstract figures. They amount to billions of missed development opportunities, lost livelihoods, and worsened poverty. On the African continent alone, more money is lost due to tax evasion, money laundering, and illicit financial flows than comes in through official development assistance.
In Russia, President Vladimir Putin will push for the strengthening of BRICS in 2024 as an alternative to Western pressure. The president said that they will make every effort to enhance the role of a partnership in solving the current issues of the global agenda and will strive to strengthen a comprehensive strategic partnership within the BRICS framework. According to the Russian leader, the unification of the organization is fundamental and necessary in view of the growing Western hegemonism in controlling the world financial and banking system. In Sudan, international organizations denounced the death of more than 12,000 people and the displacement of nearly 7 million, as well as an increase in epidemics. The World Health Organization warned of an increase in measles, dengue, fever, and cholera throughout the country after 8 months of armed confrontations between army and paramilitaries. Mohammed Taifik Marshall, World Health Organization representative in Sudan, said that cholera outbreaks have already occurred in 9 states and measles cases have been reported in 11 states, as well as more than 6,000 cases of dengue fever. We have come to the end of this news brief, but before saying goodbye, we want to thank our Caribbean audience, especially the audience of Trinidad and Tobago. We're pleased to share our newscast and contribute to provide alternative news sources of the latest world events. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net and also use on our socials from Facebook, on X, and on Instagram as well. For TeleSUR English and from the South, I'm Ana Marrero. Thank you for watching.